Hello, everybody. Josh Brown here, back for another great episode on Franchise Euphoria. Well, today's episode is brought to you by IndieFranchiseLaw.com, a leading resource in the franchise space to help you if you're considering buying a franchise, turning your business into a franchise, or growing your business through a licensing or franchise structure. So go on, check it out, IndieFranchiseLaw.com. I think you'll find a lot of valuable and free information as you continue to kind of weigh franchising and licensing and the growth of your business. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy today's episode. On today's episode of Franchise Euphoria, I'm thrilled to welcome Andrew Alfano. Andrew is the CEO of Retro Fitness, a leader in the high-value, low-price fitness space with more than 140 gyms open or under development in 15 states. Alfano joined Retro Fitness this past May with over 25 years of experience in the retail, hospitality, and restaurant industries to mature and drive the growth of the brand across the United States. A high-energy, driven leader, Alfano helped architect Starbucks' rapid and strategic growth in some of the more high-profile, complex urban markets, specifically the flagship market of New York. During his time, these markets saw record growth in same-store sales and profits. In addition, Alfano was a key member of the leadership team that helped lead the U.S. business out of the company's downturn in 2008. Andrew has a tremendous amount of background and experience, has a tremendous amount of passion, and he brings all of that to the interview here today. So hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. And without further ado, here is my interview with Andrew Alfano. Hello, Andrew. Welcome to Franchise Euphoria. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Josh. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to have you on. Actually, it's interesting. Over the years, I've had quite a few fitness franchises on. I'm not sure I've had anybody with the level of experience and background that you bring to the table. So I'm really interested and curious to talk with you, not only about retro fitness, but to begin by just sort of getting some background on your experience in franchising in the retail space.
You're very kind. You're very kind. I actually started my career back in food service. I'm a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America. So I was a chef before I got into operations and quickly transitioned out front to front of the house, the business section, if you will. And as luck would have it, pretty early on in my career, I stumbled across a small little coffee company you may have heard of, Starbucks. And
I've heard of them.
yeah, all jokes aside, it was so early in their maturity cycle. I actually had to explain to my wife what Starbucks was. This was back in the late '90s. Yeah, they had certainly done well in the Pacific Northwest, but had just really entered the Northeast. And I joined them as a district manager and worked my way up to senior vice president, U.S. business. And it was really one of those right place, right times, tremendous experience, as you would imagine there, and a real pinch me career at Starbucks. And spent the better part of 60 years out of the 90s, took them through the 2000s and into 2015. And obviously, there were many, many, many people that helped build that company.
But when you started with them, do you remember how many locations they had? And then when you finished, how many locations did they have?
Yeah, so I want to say in the country they were in the probably around 1,500, give or take. But again, predominantly in the Pacific Northwest, down through California. I want to say they were in Chicago and might have entered the Mid Atlantic. They put their first location in New York. I want to say is 1995. And when I left, there was about 24,000 globally.
Wow.
Yeah. So at the time, we were really only one of three other companies that had done something like that. Subway was the leader. I think they had over 40,000 locations, followed by McDonald's. That was in the 30,000s. And we were around, again, in the 20,000s, which just, again, an unbelievable experience, great opportunity. And to this day, I continue to harken back to so many of those experiences that are so applicable today here at Retro Fitness and helping us get retro to a whole different place and certainly helping us get through the pandemic.
Yeah, so I mean, how do you go so when you leave Starbucks, did you go over to Retro or did you go a couple other places and then make your way to Retro? How did you make the transition from there over to Retro?
Yeah, I had left Starbucks and really wasn't even sure if I was going to go back to quintessential work, as I do the air quotes. And I was introduced to a small company that was based down in Boca. It was a franchise organization in preschool, of all things. So it's funny, you go from culinary to coffee to then kids. And people ask the question, how do you make that transition? And the reality of it is if you're building high performing teams, you're driving revenue, and you're helping redefine brand, and suddenly it sounded oddly familiar to what I had been doing forever. And joined that company. The two founders, the father son, the father was retiring, and they went through a transaction. They brought in a private equity firm who was looking for someone to come in and work with the CEO who was there at the time. I joined as president and COO, and they were looking for a 5-year horizon, like many private equity groups, and looking for someone to help scale the business. And when I joined, they had about 130 operating units in the country, and took them through a transaction about 2 years early. So it was about 3.5 years in, double digit multiple. Everybody was very happy. And today they can boast of 400 units open or in development around the country, inclusive of European expansion. So it was, again, a great experience. Everybody did well, a wonderful family, wonderful people. And after the transaction, I had left the learning experience, and again found myself not really thinking I was going to go back to quintessential work. And literally the next day, the person who had introduced me to that organization had called and wanted to have coffee with me. And I thought she had heard that I had just left, and it was just coincidental. And she says, "Well, geez, what would you like to do now?" And I said, "Well, I'm just going to take a break." And she says, "Well, if you didn't take a break, what would you like to do?" And I said, "Well, I'd probably want to do what I just did. It was a ton of fun. It was a small company that was an inflection point, looking to grow." And what I really love about franchising, which is different than we were at Starbucks, although there were many of the locations were licensed locations, which many people don't know. So of the 12,000 locations when I was there, 5,000 were corporate, 7,000 were licensed. So it's in that world of franchising, but different when you're working with franchisees. It really gives you an opportunity to serve. I really enjoy the people aspect of it, helping people be successful, helping people create wealth situations for themselves, for their families, and just getting to know them. I mean, our franchisees, both in my last company, but certainly here, when I first joined, one of the very first things I did was hit the road. And I went on, again, with the air quotes, the quasi listening tour. And I went and met with franchisees in their clubs. And what I thoroughly enjoy, you get to meet them, you get to meet their family, you get to hear their goals, their aspirations. And it's one of the great things about franchising. And I really just thoroughly enjoy it, but really, more importantly, the people component.
No, that's great. And so when you joined up with and became the CEO of Retro Fitness, how many units did they have at that time?
We had about 100, just about what we have right now, actually, just about 140 units open or in development. And again, the company, very similar to my prior company, it was no question at an inflection point. I came in, and since then, I'm there about a year. We have a brand new executive team. We have a new strategy, new vision for the organization. We're getting a lot of attention and a lot of interest from private equity and family offices as we've now moved to offering area development in territories. Coming from rapid growth like Starbucks, one would think, okay, so what's the size of the prize? And very similar to my last company, I really don't focus on rapid growth as much as I focus on thoughtful growth. And we know what the white space is. We know that in the HVLP space for fitness, which is the space that we play in, we know we have the opportunity probably for around 2,000 locations. I don't believe that is our destiny, and we're not chasing a number. So we're not private equity. Our own majority ownership is a family office, and we're certainly not public like the number one club count, which would be Planet Fitness. They have over 2,000 locations, and as I share, they are a public company and answer to a different god. They have
Yeah.
to they have to chase store count. They have no choice. We do have a
Yeah,
choice.
exactly.
So I really look at this as, it is thoughtful growth. We know the emerging markets that we want to go to. We know the opportunities in those markets, and I've always let the market and the demographics speak to me, as opposed to forcing the number and trying to get X amount of locations into a particular area. And I've seen through the years so many organizations, big and small, really lose their way when you start chasing store count. So we're in thoughtful growth mode. We really like our model. We really like our positioning. And despite the pandemic, we're actually coming out of this quite healthy. ready to run and ready to run hard.
So tell me about your model. I mean, it's in line with what like a Planet Fitness would do, right? I mean, as you say, high value, lower price point to get in. But what I always like to do on the podcast, because obviously it's an audio podcast instead of a video, is have the guest, if you could, for people who are listening who haven't heard of retro fitness or haven't been inside one, give a sense for what it looks like, feels like when you go into a location.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that opportunity. So we do play in what's called the high value, low price space of fitness. For those that are looking to get into the fitness industry, whether it be franchising or just want to learn more, there's really four segments. And what seems on the surface like a very crowded space, and certainly was my impression when I first started doing my diligence, what you quickly learn is the fitness sector or fitness industry is divided really into four sectors. You have the boutique gyms, which are the Orange Theories, Pilates, Soul Cycles, if you will. They're not our competition. They're not necessarily in our space. Another sector would be the high value, high price guys. Those are the Equinoxes, the country club gyms, if you will. Those two are not necessarily our competition, completely different consumer. You have the big box gyms. So you have the LA Fitnesses, and those are the mid price guys. Their pricing tends to be 49, 59, $69 a month. They are very large, impersonal, and that's not a knock. It's certainly not looking to slight them. They've done a wonderful job, and I have a lot of respect for them. So let me certainly establish that. But they're also corporate owned. And then you have the space that we play in, the high value, low price. And as we shared, Planet Fitness has the most clubs, followed by Crunch, and then we're actually the third largest high value, low price club in the country. And I think one of our points of differentiation from some of the others that play in this space is we truly do deliver the high value. So we are not, our cardio against your cardio, our machines against your machines. We actually have all of the classes that the boutique gyms offer for the low price, 19.99 and or 29.99. Those are our two price points. We have personal training, which others don't offer. We have certainly best in class machines and equipment. We have a smoothie bar. And what's most important from a point of differentiation is we are all individually owned and operated. So, unlike the big corporate chains where it's just the employee behind there, the small business owner is a franchisee, and most of our franchisees live and work in the communities that they serve. So I think one of the things you really feel upon entering a retro fitness is, aside from all the accoutrements and the classes and the personal training and the smoothie bar and everything I just shared, you really get this sense of belonging, this sense of community. And that is really what attracted me to retro. And as retro fitness grew, and we're celebrating our 15-year anniversary this year, it really, every town it went into, it became the hometown gym. And it became a hometown gym because of our fantastic franchisees, who again are small business owners, and they build a community inside the four walls of their clubs. But more importantly, they also become a fabric of the community outside the four walls of the clubs. And it really just makes for, a great relationship. And I think that's been a huge part of our success. That is something that we're going to continue to lean in heavily on, is that relationship with our members. And I'll speak about members. That's also something else that we do differently, is we actually want you to come to our clubs. We don't track necessarily, and it's well documented in some gyms, that they know that 80% don't come to their clubs.
Well, yeah, I mean, they know if they set the price low enough, most people are gonna pay and forget about it, and God forbid they actually show up because they'd run out of space, wouldn't have enough equipment.
That's right. That's right. So, we really want our members to come to the club. We have relationships with our members. And we also recognize, especially now, here we are during the pandemic, we really want to help people make, and not want to help make, we help people make a difference in their lives with health and wellness, which is also a key differentiator for us. So, since I've gotten here, we have invested heavily in technology. So, as an example, one of the things that many people don't realize is the average gym goer, not the super average, but the average gym goer, we really only get at the club 3.5 to 4 hours a week. And that's three or four times, 45 minutes to an hour, give or take. And really, what happens for you on a health and wellness journey, health and wellness is happening all the time. Whether you're taking the steps instead of the elevator, it could be what you're cooking tonight. So we have invested heavily in technology, and we want to take the fitness journey with our members throughout their entire day, throughout their entire week. So one of the ways that you can interact with us is through our app, which is free right now during the pandemic, because we also recognize that health and wellness has a tremendous positive impact on mental health and anxiety and depression, especially now during the pandemic. We have cooking classes, we have nutrition classes. So I think that's again, how do we take the brick and mortar, create an extension, and different than what has been occurring in the fitness industry for all of these years, is we really want to focus on the consumer's engagement with our brand and not just a gym member coming in to work out, which I think historically is what gyms get known for. So we're about the brand. We are certainly, about innovation and technology, and we really, again, like our positioning. Whether you're an investor looking to buy a franchise, or whether you're a member looking to find a good gym and people that care about you.
So what type of franchisee are you guys looking for? I mean, are you looking for an area developer, a multi-unit operator? And then more specifically, I mean, what kind of experience do you ideally want somebody or a group to bring to the table when they come in?
Sure. So we have two types. We do have the owner operator, and then we also have the investor. And what I would share with people who want to get into franchising is the hybrid version does not work on any level. There's been a number of people through the years that have tried to keep their day job, and well, I'm going to stop by, whether it be the restaurant or the gym or the school, whatever you're franchising, in the evenings on the weekends, and that hybrid model does not work. So we do have an owner operator model, and we also have an investor model. As a matter of fact, we just brought a franchisee on a couple of weeks ago. Even during the pandemic, we continue to sign franchise agreements, which is really wonderful
That's great.
and says a lot about the direction that we're in. But they have a job, and they said, listen, I just want to make an investment. I've been tracking the growth and maturity of retro fitness over the course of the last 12 months. They've seen the changes in infrastructure and the change with the executive team, was very interested, and they don't want to operate it. And we can help in instances that someone wants to be an investor. We can help get an operating partner for that person. In this instance, they already had a general manager they were going to bring in. But yeah, we also have different types. So we have the single unit, which is what this gentleman just purchased as an investor, or for the mom and pops. We have the multi-unit package, which for us, multi-unit starts at four. And then we also have, which is new over the course of the last, I would say, 12 months, is area development and territories. And like I shared, we've been getting a lot of attention from private equity and family offices. Matter of fact, Baird and Company, which is a big financial house, who had been watching retro for many years, has really taken keen interest in what we're doing as of late, and invited myself and my executive team to be hosted for a town hall. There was over 100 private equity groups RSVP'd to participate in that town hall to hear about the journey that we're on. So that's very flattering. We're honored. It's humbling. I do think that we have made tremendous progress in a very short period of time. Matter of fact, this past January was the best January in the history of the company. Not even January over January, the best January in the history of the company. So, very proud of the team, very proud of the franchisees, and really looking forward to the future.
Well, it's interesting because, I've been in franchising a long time, mostly as a franchise lawyer, for the last 12 to 14 years. But then even prior to that, I worked for a couple different franchise groups. And one of the interesting things about franchises is that, a franchisor can do well, can do very well, in spite of the fact that a lot of their franchisees may not be doing as well, but they're doing well just on a multiple of getting the volume. And what I like about what you're saying is you guys are taking a thoughtful approach, making sure you're getting the right people in there and focusing on each franchisee doing well as opposed to just expediting the growth. And, for those tuning in who are contemplating becoming franchisees or even turning their business into a franchise. I mean, I think it's a very important point to think about that a lot of people don't think about until after the fact. And that is, the relationship between the franchisee and the franchisor is really a partnership. And it really needs to be something
Hmm.
where both are working together. I'd be curious, with your experience and your background, a lot of people who tune in to this show are contemplating turning their business into a franchise and then growing the franchise. And one of the most interesting and challenging things for any franchise system is to grow and to grow thoughtfully, like you said. How do you do that? What's the sort of secret sauce to do that? I mean, are you guys really particular on the backgrounds, like you said?
Mhm.
Or are there other things that go into it? Because I think people go in oftentimes with those intentions, but somewhere along the way, they get caught in the rat race of trying to outgrow their competition.
Yeah, it's a quandary. Yeah, the streets are littered with people who have attempted to, be successful and have failed because either they didn't do their homework, why they were getting into that business in the first place was for the wrong reasons. So before you turn your business into a franchise system, I really think it has to be within you, no different than what I shared earlier. As a franchisor, it is your responsibility to serve. It is your responsibility to provide the tools, the resources, the support, and you're taking exactly what you shared, which is extremely insightful. It's a partnership, and you are taking this journey with people who arguably have taken out a sizable loan, in some instances have taken out a second mortgage on their home, are investing in something other than their home itself is the most expensive investment they've ever made. This is a really big deal. This is a really big
Sure.
deal.
And it's a
And
long-term deal. It's a long-term
yeah,
deal too.
that's right. So I think, the thoughtfulness, the sensitivities that are associated with needing to be a good leader in a franchise organization is critically important. And subsequently, who you surround yourself with, not only internally on the corporate side, which is certainly something that I look for, but also franchisees that you bring into the system. And I suspect your very first franchisee, you're probably ecstatic that anybody at all would want to invest in you, which is wonderful. But if you are that first franchisee, your next biggest concern other than your business is who else is coming in as a franchisee, because you're now growing a brand, and consistency within a brand is critically important. And that other franchisee is not your competition. Matter of fact, the value of your business is also in the value of their business, and who the franchisor brings into the system. All boats must rise at the same time. And it's that old adage that one bad apple in the bushel spoils the whole thing. And it's critically important. So one of the things that I implemented as soon as I came in, well, one, we restructured and we have a whole new executive team with very talented people, very, very talented people. Matter of fact, our head of operations was the former COO of Gold's, former COO of one of the largest Planet Fitness franchises. Our head of marketing and brand worked with world class brands around the globe. These are not folks that are just getting into this because it seemed like a good idea. This was a very thoughtful approach. They knew I had just made a change the organization. They're ready to build a brand, which is really the journey that we're on. This is the long game for us. But when you're working with franchisees and you're bringing them in, and I shared this at our first convention this past October, beyond the financial requirements, and I would never be dismissive of money. It's obviously very important. That's why people get into this. But money's the easy part. What you really have to make sure is, are they a good cultural fit? Is this someone who really embodies the core values and the culture of the organization that you're looking to build? Because in absence of that, that's the foundation. That is truly the foundation. So we've spent a lot of time over the course of the last 12 months with our new team, helping define what that is. I will tell you that nobody signs a franchise agreement unless the entire executive team meets with them. And both, obviously, you have to have the financial requirements, which I've already shared, but we spend a lot of time. We spend a lot of personal time trying to get to know these people, what their goals are. And that's obviously the individuals. But I have the same conversations with private equity. A lot of private equity comes, they come with a lot of money and they come with a lot of horsepower. And, I respect that. But in the same vein, we're looking for good business partners. That is really important to us because ultimately it just becomes the short game. And you don't make, as a franchisor, you don't make any money on one agreement, right? It's all of them together and it's the growth. And if in fact you are in the long game, culture and core values is just important. So I will tell you that's not part of what we do. That is what we do. That is our strategy.
In finishing up here in the last couple minutes, I'd love to hear, obviously we're still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Things seem like they're opening up. Still a lot of concern about whether there's going to be a bounce back, how things are going to go, whether it's going to, with more people opening up and relaxing some of the restraints and requirements, what that's going to look like. What are you guys doing? What have you done with Retro Fitness to not only deal with this pandemic now, but I'm curious if it's impacted how you look at your long-term growth or different ways in which you offer services or are working with the franchisees.
Yeah, this is certainly unprecedented times. I think for everyone, we heard about it in the news in January. February is when I would say we felt the winds of change. And no different than what I shared earlier in our conversation was hearkening back to my days at Starbucks. We went through a lot of crisis. We went through the downturn. As we'd entered different markets around the globe, you were dealing with crisis all the time. And one of the very first things that you learn in crisis, it's crisis management 101, is communicate early and communicate often. In the end of February, what we started doing was battening down the hatches. We started modeling out all different scenarios of what could possibly occur, including worst case scenario. But to be fully transparent, even our worst case scenario modeling did not include zero revenue for months on end.
Yeah, it did. It
But
did include a complete shutdown of everything, did it?
no, no, I'll be completely honest with that one. But what we did do was we put together a coronavirus task force that included both corporate personnel, but it also included franchisees. We include franchisees in our conversations, in our committees. We're very transparent in what's going on in the organization. I think that's been a nice, refreshing change, for the franchisees. And what I did in the beginning of March, when we first started hearing about, we highly recommend you close, was coming in from different local authorities. And the first one was in Pennsylvania. We had 4 clubs, and we got notified. We highly recommend you close. And then in March, as everybody knows, it moved very quickly. The dominoes started falling quickly. But with franchisees, again, these are all small business owners. Cash is king. And they were very concerned about what was happening in the world around us. So, what I did, and it's one of the things that I do regularly, is I did a video message, an internal PSA from myself to the franchisees. This was back in early March. And I said, if in fact this does go worst case scenario, we're going to go through this together, and we're going to go through this in partnership. So, if in fact you are mandated to close, we are going to waive, not defer, we are going to waive all royalties, all fees, all ad fund. I don't know a franchise system out there that did that to that extent. I heard a lot of the deferring of everything. And in our organization, you do have minimum royalties. So even if they weren't collecting revenue, we would still have had I not waived it, a minimum royalty. But what I wanted them to do is I wanted them both personally be able to focus on their families and not worry about it, but at the same time, know that we were in this together. So we made that announcement. I also shared, if in fact you do remain open, stop spending your marketing dollars. We will take care of that for you as well. And we've been doing that all through the pandemic. And one might say, well, geez, how could you even afford to do that? But going back to, you really have to err on the side of people. And you have to be, you're either a franchisor that serves your franchisees or you're not. It's not one or the other. It's you are or you aren't. And I just said we can't afford not to, because these people were just not in the position to weather a storm, whether it be for 1 month, 2 months, what is now going to be almost 4 months. We breached the 100-day mark where in the state of New Jersey, we still have clubs, 53 clubs that are still not open. That's painful. I mean, there are, not just in fitness, not just at Retro Fitness, but you'll have people who have, not going to be able to open their business back up. Some may never recover ever. This not a that's not a Retro Fitness comment. That's just small business owners are really struggling. So I wanted to do everything that I could within my power. We kept our staff on, continued to work with our franchisees with webinars before they are allowed to reopen, and we do have clubs open right now. We have 14 clubs open around the country. We have certified before they open. We certify that every club has met all new health and sanitation standards. We put webinars together and have retrained all employees that they now are able to work within a new COVID arena, if you will, for the clubs. And we put together what you would hope we would, obviously following all local and state regulations in the form of social distancing and sanitation and truthfully fitness. And we've had this conversation a couple of times with some other interviews, is that we really feel that fitness is in a far better position than many other industries to provide a safe environment. And you hear a lot of the politicians have different varying views. I think Ron DeSantis was probably the most progressive in this and helped get our clubs open. But it's not going to help you get or avoid corona by being healthy. But if in fact you are healthy, you're probably going to get through it okay. It's really the people with the pre-existing conditions, and it's clear that the unfortunate part, some people have in fact been dealt a bad hand, and a pre-existing condition was imposed on them. But truthfully, most pre-existing conditions are a result of not having been focused on health and wellness. So we don't see the gyms not necessarily as not being third or fourth phase. We actually think they are the most essential, and the government should really be promoting fitness and getting these gyms back open.
Well, I think it's interesting. There's 2 things as we finish up. One is that, one of the, I would say, silver linings, at least for me, and I know a whole lot of people I talk to, is I've been working remotely now for the last 3.5 months. And even before then, I was set up to work remotely. And a couple of interesting things, one of which I really enjoy it. But one of the reasons I really enjoy it, and you've probably heard this, is because I have more control over my day and I literally work out every single day now. Whereas before I would have the intention of working out, but I've got 3 kids, you don't do it in the
Hmm.
morning, you get to the
Hmm.
office, it's the middle of your day, it's like, do I wanna go work out? Then where am I gonna shower? I mean, it's like all these things, these obstacles, but when you're working remotely, you just do it. And so I've developed the habit now over several months, and you multiply me times a whole bunch of people. And I think you're going to see there's a whole lot of folks who have now over this time built up that habit, which would translate well for obviously gym memberships and so forth. But number two is there's just going to be a lot of ripe opportunities. I mean, the fact of the matter is unfortunately, there's a whole lot of businesses that aren't going to be in a position to sustain this, and so it's gonna leave an opportunity for folks like, Retro Fitness and others to come in and I think really take advantage and both in perhaps helping other people who can't make it and buying them out of a position, and then also helping themselves and grow. So I think you guys it sounds like you're well positioned as we continue to work through this COVID-19 pandemic. But it certainly seems to me, and it probably does to you, that there's light on the other end of the end of the horizon. I mean, I'm certainly sensing that in my own world.
Yeah, they're going to get open, sooner rather than later. But to your point, we feel that not only is fitness not going away, fitness, in fact, may be more relevant than ever because after the
Yeah, I
pandemic,
agree.
and after every news station, every politician saying, really, it's the elderly and the people with pre-existing conditions. If you're not going to get healthy now, you're probably never going to get healthy. So,
Yeah, it's
again,
like I better get off my ass and do something, right? I better get off my ass and actually go work out. I've been talking about it for 10 years. I might as well go do it now.
yeah, yeah. So both for members, we do think there's a great opportunity for increased membership at Retro Fitness, but also for people that are going to be out of work. I mean, there's a real reality to people who have gotten themselves into junior executive or executive positions, and they've been eliminated over the course of the last 12 weeks. So you'll have some folks out there that have made enough money that they can invest, but not necessarily enough money they can go retire. And I think that's where franchising has been something in our country that has been the antidote for buy yourself a job for a very long time. And if in fact you are going to get into franchising, what type of industry do you want to get into? Well, the restaurant sector has been going through an inflection point now for a number of years, especially with the millennials, who want their food now. They want it from a farm. They want it delivered to them. So that whole industry is trying to figure itself out. You have the
Yep.
Amazon effect that has really put a dent into retail, which also has been very franchise friendly for many years. And then you have fitness. It's a $30 billion industry. Even pre pandemic, it's an industry that was going to be growing 20% over the next 5 years. And I think, if in fact there is going to be an economic correction of some kind, which inevitably there will be, if you're going to get into fitness, you really want to play in the high value, low price space. And I appreciate, again, all the things my franchisees have done with us over the course of the last 12 months. I appreciate the things my executive team and corporate team have done in partnership with the broader group to affect change. It has really positioned us well. Nobody expecting a pandemic, but timing is everything. And I think that January, February helped us, prepare, and we were able to do things for our franchisees that had this been another point in time, we arguably would not have had the resources to do it. But we're going to come out of this. We're coming out of this healthy. We're ready to run, and we're ready to run hard.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you, Andrew, for sharing, your experience and educating us on retro fitness. And it sounds like a great brand with a bright future. And I really appreciate you spending a few minutes out of your day and coming on to the show. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I really appreciated the time.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Franchise Euphoria. If you enjoyed this episode or have enjoyed the podcast in general, I would really appreciate it if you could go to iTunes and leave me a rating and review. It really helps to get this podcast out to more and more people. So the easy way to do it is go to iTunes and in the search box, put in Franchise Euphoria. You will then see my cover art, and you click on my smiling face that says Franchise Euphoria, and then click on the link that says ratings and reviews. It's that simple, but boy, oh boy, does it mean the world to me when people leave ratings and reviews. And like I said, it really helps get the show out there. Once again, would love it if you would go to iTunes and leave a rating and review if you enjoyed this episode or other episodes of the show. And until the next time, happy franchising.